Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Autistic Transit Fan. It's been a bit of a while since I last posted a video. I'm sorry about that. I did have the idea to make this video about a week before I ended up actually doing it because I then immediately got sick. So, sorry about that. But anyway, we're back with this video. And this is going to be quite an interesting one because, you see, over the past few weeks, I've had the pleasure of being able to visit a bunch of different cities across the US, and while doing that, I've been able to see a bunch of different light rail systems, or transit systems in general, in those cities. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to be focusing on light rail to show that even though light rail is a category of transit, what it actually is can be twisted in various different ways so that it serves very different purposes throughout different cities, and today we're going to be looking at 3 key examples of that. So, with that being said, grab a snack and sit back, relax. Let's get right into the video. Kicking things off, we have the Cincinnati streetcar, formerly known as the Cincinnati Bell Connector, even though the onboard announcements still call it that for some reason and haven't been updated yet. Anyway, this system is a weird, short little figure-8 one-way streetcar loop through downtown Cincinnati that is honestly not as bad as I was expecting for the modern era of American streetcar systems, which are notorious for not really seeing that much use or serving that much of a purpose. But this might be one of the few minor exceptions. Sure, it's nothing special in terms of, say, frequency, because it runs every 12 minutes, or in terms of its routing, because it only goes through downtown, but the rolling stock on this route is actually pretty nice for American streetcar system standards. I mean, we're talking fully low floor, which is something a lot of light rail systems can't even bother to do right. And it actually sees pretty good ridership for a system of its size, and especially for a city the size of Cincinnati. There have been a lot of talks about expanding the system in the future to maybe UC, but honestly, I'm not sure how feasible that is considering the very hilly topography of Cincinnati. Speaking of hills, welcome to Seattle. This US city is actually quite well known in the transit space for its light rail system, which is something that you can't really say about a lot of other North American light rail systems. But this one is actually really good. And that's the biggest problem I have with it. If you want to hear a bit more in depth, I talk about it a bit in my video on the San Diego light rail, but to basically sum up, this system should not be a light rail system. Basically, Seattle spent billions of dollars building what is essentially a metro system only to run light rail vehicles on it, killing the capacity of the line, and also justifying the awful slow speeds of the street running section in the Rainier Valley, because if you're running with streets, you got to worry about cars and people getting in the way. Well, if you're running on a dedicated right-of-way, you only have to do that sometimes. Anywho, as fun as it is to, well, make a bit of fun of the Seattle light rail system, I do have to say it is still very nice. It's still a great system. It could have been better if it was a metro, but I'm definitely not complaining that they got something, because a lot of other US cities didn't. And, well, Seattle did, and they seem to have tried their best to make the most out of their light rail, like make it as metro as possible, which, again, as I said before, creates a few problems, but otherwise it's still very nice. The only real issue from a rider experience was the fact that there aren't physical fare gates, even though, the system wants to be a metro so bad. They still have those, light rail fare readers, which you can use, a debit card on or, a credit card, but the issue with them, or the fare system actually, is that it times out after 2 hours. So if you get a delay and you're trying to get from like Redmond to Federal Way, you're probably going to have to tap again if you don't want to get fined by transit police. So there is that, but that's a pretty small issue compared to, the rest of the system, which was really nice to ride on. Unfortunately, I don't think I could say the same thing about the next system that we're about to cover for various reasons. And once you hear where this is, you're not going to be surprised at all that it's not great.
No. Wait.
Welcome to Phoenix, Arizona, where urban planners come to die. Well, actually, I'm in Tempe recording this part of the video, but it's still the Phoenix metro area. This here is the Valley Metro Light Rail, which currently consists of 2 light rail lines and 1 streetcar line. And yes, they are different. Let's start with the light rail, and oh boy, where do I start? For starters, what you're seeing on the screen right now, and have been for the past minute, this system has absolutely no signal priority whatsoever, which wouldn't be an issue if 98% of the route wasn't running in street right-of-ways. So, that's bad. What's also bad is the fact that the absolute best frequency for the lines are every 12 minutes. The worst that I have seen on the schedule, which is scheduled, is every 20, but in reality, you can end up waiting even longer. Another thing is, I can't help but notice that they spent all this money building these nice dedicated right-of-ways for their light rail in the street median with a curb actually separating it from the street, only to then not implement transit signal priority and slow down the trip regardless, defeating the entire point of putting the line in a dedicated right-of-way. But the worst thing about this entire setup that they have is the transfer in downtown Phoenix. Now, when your light rail system is running every 20 minutes, you really would think that they would time transfers accordingly so people could, actually make their connections and not have to wait 20 minutes in downtown. Well, you should probably feel a bit bad for even thinking they would consider that in the first place, because we're still talking about Phoenix here. So, of course, that was not taken into consideration at all, and instead, the transfers are given a 1-minute window, which, with the timing of the crossing lights in downtown, is near impossible to make. And to make things even better, this system uses 2-unit-long light rail trains, but the platforms are built in anticipation for 3-unit-long ones. So, for the time being, you have to run even further if you want to make your 1-minute downtown connection. I just want to know what in the world they were thinking when they drew up that schedule and said, yeah, looks good to me. So, overall, the light rail system in Phoenix leaves a lot, and I mean a lot, to be desired. There was one small little silver lining for me when I visited, though, and that was the fact that because the line parallels the approach into the airport, I got to race an approaching plane on the light rail, which is something that I have never been able to do before on any kind of train. So that was pretty cool. Moving on to the Tempe streetcar, and it's not exactly that much better. Well, the frequencies are basically the same, so expect to wait 20 minutes if you just missed one. And the system's also pretty weird, to be honest. I mean, the trains it uses are built by Brookville, which also built ones for, I think, Dallas and Detroit and Milwaukee and Oklahoma City, I think. But the weirder thing about them is that they are also battery powered, so they can run both on an overhead wire and just on their own battery power. And it seems like when they were designing the Tempe streetcar, they kind of just flipped a coin for a certain section to decide whether or not it would use the overhead wire or not, because it seemed like every single stop was like different with that. Like, it just seemed really inconsistent. This line would be very good if the frequency was better, I will say. It's kind of a shame, honestly, because downtown Tempe is actually pretty walkable for, being in the Phoenix metro area. So it really sucks that they have this really nice streetcar system and it runs every 20 minutes only. Unlike the one in Cincinnati, this one is not fully low floor. You can actually kind of see, if you look in the window, that there's a high floor section on these, and only the section with the doors is low floor. But yeah, overall, the transit in Phoenix, or at least the rail transit, definitely leaves a lot to be desired. And it really could be so much better with just small improvements, like signal priority and higher frequencies. Like, you don't even, at the moment, really need to expand the network that much. You definitely should, but it wouldn't be a necessity right now to like double your ridership. You could easily do that by just doing those two simple things. So it's actually kind of frustrating to see that they just haven't. So, what can be learned by looking at these three drastically different systems together? Well, for starters, we can clearly see that light rail, or really any transit mode, can't really be boxed into a standard definition for this category of transit. Like, there are many different ways that it can be used. There are many different subcategories of the systems. For example, modern light rail systems can be split down further into modern streetcar systems or modern European-style tramways. And then, even with what most people would call light rail, cities will still build it very, very differently. Like, even if it's not called a streetcar or doesn't resemble like a modern European tram and more resembles like a North American light rail, it's still drastically different if you go between somewhere like St. Louis and San Diego, or in this video's case, Seattle and Phoenix, which took two drastically different approaches to urban planning. So it was really a night and day difference when I went directly between those two. But yeah, in conclusion, transit is adaptable. You should make sure to pick a mode in a specific kind of mode that suits the needs for your city, and try to mess around with it, like tweak it a bit to make sure it fits just perfectly for where you're trying to build it. So yeah, that's my advice. Well, anyway, that's going to do it for this video. If you have any ideas for other videos I should make, leave them down in the comments below. And if you like this one, make sure to subscribe. That's all for this time. I'm the Autistic Transit Fan, and I'm signing off.